if you want to avoid a C-section, then you need to be aware that a labor that takes more than 12 hours from start to finish is not a reason to start interfering. In fact, this is so prevalent that it is pop culture. It is an actual pop culture phenomenon that keeps happening. And if you don't believe me, then just listen to what is inside of 50 Shades Freed as a throwaway passage at the end of the book. Mrs. Gray, you've been in labor for 15 hours now. Your contractions have slowed in spite of the Pitocin. We need to do a C-section. The baby is in distress. Dr. Green is adamant. About fucking time, Christian growls at her. Dr. Green ignores him. Christian, quiet. I squeeze his hand. My voice is low and weak, and everything is fuzzy. The walls, the machines, the green-gowned people. I just want to go to sleep. But I have something important to do first. Oh, yes. I wanted to push him out myself. Mrs. Gray, please. C-section. Please, Anna, Christian pleads. Can I sleep then? Yes, baby, yes. It's almost a sob, and Christian kisses my forehead. Like, unbelievable. Like, just 15 hours. Pitocin. C-section. Throwaway couple of lines in a book. A book that many women were reading before they were even thinking of having babies. A book that a lot of women were reading as romance, as fluff, as something that wasn't even on their radar as birth trauma. And yet this scene is in there. How do you feel when you hear those stories of moms who say, I was in labor for 15 hours or 36 hours, and then I ended up having a C-section? Or what if you were one of those moms? You were in labor for a very long time, and it ended in a C-section. And now you want a VBAC, but you're also thinking, I don't want to go through that long labor again. Hi, my name is Carly Bonderud, and this is the Empowered Birth series where I go deep into everything that you need to know to plan and get your true natural birth and avoid a C-section. And this is season 3, the Cesarean Traps. If you've been following me for a while, then you already know the process. You know that the Cesarean Traps are essentially what it sounds like. You were planning to have a natural birth, you fell into one of these traps, and now you've had a C-section. You want to avoid a C-section? Then you need to know those 21 Cesarean Traps. And inside of season 3 of the Empowered Birth series, the Cesarean Traps, I'm going deep into every single one of those 21 Cesarean Traps that you want to avoid. This is number 9 on our list, which is the labor that takes longer than 12 hours. You know, this is a problem in our medical system and our birth culture where long labor has now been synonymous with try to do something to get things going. In Anna's case, they started running Pitocin. Now, I have to wonder why the heck she was on Pitocin before she even really hit a major point in labor. They were trying to speed it up from the beginning, obviously. And yes, Pitocin can lead to distress. Inside of this series, I'm going to be going deep into all of the ways that you can fall into the Cesarean trap, with the long labor being kind of a catalyst for a lot of the reasons why these other interventions are introduced. You may also want to check out the video on failure to progress and the video before this one, which was not dilating 1 centimeter per hour, to learn this deeper. If you are brand new to me, you're also going to want to check out the first video in the Cesarean Trap series, which is inside of the Empowered Birth series playlist for Cesarean Traps. Go to my channel, go into the playlist, and you can get access to that. You're going to want to know that because I go deeper into how to spot the cesarean traps, what they are, and essentially what you need to know about the empowered birth method and how to avoid those traps. So I also talk about the 3 paths to empowered birth, and I also speak more about how to get the most out of these master classes because this is the do-it-yourself path. The way that these master classes work is that they can stand alone as education for you to help you not only know what to think, but how to think about it so that you can come to your birth from a place of power instead of a place of fear, so that you can make truly informed decisions, not the ones that you're led to make by the medical system and our birth culture. And finally, also how to apply the empowered birth method in the case of the long labor. So I'm going to tell you how to spot this trap, why moms fall into this trap, and essentially how to get out of this trap, how to avoid this trap altogether, and how to apply the empowered birth method. Because a long labor in itself is not a problem. The way that the medical system and our birth culture view long labor is the problem. That is why we fall into those traps. So again, if you want to know more, I'm going to suggest you check out my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide to get the overview. You can also check the first video inside of the masterclass series on cesarean traps. That will give you more. And check out the rest of this collection of the Empowered Birth series. We have 3 seasons so far. So we have the Essential Tips series for natural birth. And we also have the natural birth traps, which you're going to want to check out. And finally, now we also have the cesarean traps. So this is the deeper version of a natural birth trap. And I have talked about long labor and not being able to get things going at a certain point, not laboring fast enough. I've talked about this in other videos, so you're going to want to check out those for the deeper dive. You can also ask questions, just put it in the comments. If it is urgent, just email the team, hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com, and we're happy to assist you further. So what is the cesarean trap of the long labor? Well, it's exactly what was shown when I read that passage from 50 Shades Freed. You're in labor. You've been in labor for a considerable amount of hours. Maybe they've already started to push interventions on you, or maybe they're about to push interventions on you. Whatever happens next determines how your birth is going to unfold. So this is why a lot of the time when moms are saying, I want to have a natural birth, my number one piece of wisdom is go in at the last possible minute, because the hospital is not set up for physiological birth. They are set up to fill beds and empty beds. If you want to know more about that, check out Rachel Reed's book, Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage, because this goes deeper into how the rites of protection in the medical system often leads to the complications with physiological birth. Birth is supposed to unfold slowly, or it's supposed to take its own path. Sometimes that's fast, sometimes that's slow. But when we mess with the actual pace of what birth is and try to fit it into a box of timelines, this is when we get into this trap where that's not the way things are. Baby needs to get into certain positions. Your pelvis needs to be able to loosen and open up. You need to be able to loosen and open up. You need to be able to move with the flow of your body. But when you're looking at the clock and you're like, I've been in labor for so many hours, maybe I should just go to the hospital. No, because your labor could stop and start over the course of days or even weeks. And a lot of times moms think, well, my contractions are close together. I should probably head to the hospital now, only for labor to fizzle out. Is it that they failed to progress? Or is it that this was a false start? And if it was a false start, which is a warm-up or non-progressing labor, which I have experienced in my own labors, if you stay in the hospital, they are more likely to do things to you. I understood this deeply, and this is why a lot of moms fall into this trap, is because you're told you go to the hospital, and if labor isn't progressing, then they are going to do things, and we need to speed things up because you have to have your baby within a certain time frame. But if you are not far enough along, or you are getting induced and you don't need to be induced, this can then lead to labor stalling out, fizzling out, and then they say you have to do a C-section. The other one is they introduce Pitocin, and then there's something called pit to distress, where they just keep upping the Pitocin dose until suddenly baby isn't doing too well. Another one, they can break your waters. They break your waters to speed up labor. If they are trying to speed up labor again, because they want you to go into labor and have your baby within 12 hours, this can also lead to a C-section. So you see how all of these things can lead to a C-section. The reason, again, why moms don't see this is, well, you saw it. How many people would question what's in this book? How many people would sit there, read that passage, and go, WTF, as a doula and childbirth educator and someone who deeply understands physiological birth, that couple line sentences ticks me off a lot because many wouldn't question it. And we don't question it in TV shows. We don't question it in movies. We just see it everywhere. And it has been normalized. And then the medical system also perpetuates this because they have different views of what needs to be done. If labor is taking 12 hours and mom has been in the hospital 12 hours, they are going to be looking at that chart and they're going to be like, we need to speed this up because it's not lucrative for them to keep you in the hospital having a physiological birth that's taking forever. So they are going to try to speed it up. From their perspective, they need to do something, which means that there's going to be more pressure on you to do something, which means that that's going to shake your confidence. If you find that labor is not progressing, you do have options. So now that you understand how moms fall into that trap and what the trap is, how do you avoid it? Well, I already said it. Go in at the last possible minute. If you live far from a hospital, rent a hotel room or an Airbnb. Be close by so you can transfer, but go in at the last possible minute. The hospital is not set up for physiological birth. Don't induce unless you have assessed the risks and benefits and you recognize that it's medically necessary. There is a masterclass on induction, so you can go into the Natural Birth Trap series, and I do address that. There's also a masterclass on assessing risks in the Essential Tips series, so check that one out as well. And then together you can combine those and figure out whether you actually want to induce or whether this is a trap that you are now going to avoid. Do not unnecessarily speed up your labor. Because if you are trying to speed it up just to suit the clock, that is going to lead to complications. And then that can lead to a C-section. If labor has fizzled out, go home. As long as you and baby are doing well, go home. You are more likely to have a physiological birth if you go home. So this then poses the question, though, of the empowered birth method, because yes, these are great ways to avoid it. But there's something else that's in the way. Fear. What if something goes wrong? Well, that is what the empowered birth method really addresses. So I'm going to share with you how to think about it now. Okay, I've told you what to do. I've told you the typical things that a lot of doulas will tell you to do. And I've also told you the idea of why the medical system is doing what they're doing. They don't often know that this is causing the C-sections. That's not what they're trained on. They're trained on pathology. They're trained on getting mom through the system. They just don't see physiological birth. This is why reclaiming childbirth as a rite of passage is something I feel should be required reading for every single person who is serving women in the birth space, and required reading for anyone who is planning to be a parent. Because the more we understand about physiological birth and how we got into what Rachel Reed herself says is a right old mess in our birth culture, it's inside of that book. You can unravel that within that book. But now you need to apply the empowered birth method of how to think about this. So step number 1 is you need to get past your fear of having a completely unassisted birth. Because the tendency for moms to just rush to the hospital as soon as they're in labor or as soon as their waters break is the reason why a lot of labors take longer than they need to take inside the hospital, leading to those interventions. So a lot of my clients, their waters will release, but they don't rush to the hospital right away. They labor at home, and they're confident to labor at home because they know that if they did end up having to birth at home, it's not a deal breaker. They know how to call help to them, and they also know how to do it themselves. So they've released that fear. You need to release the fear of delivering your baby into your own hands, of birthing your baby into your own hands, of being able to do it no matter where you are. If you have released that fear, then that fear can no longer control you. The other side of it is you have to release the fear that the medical system is automatically in control if you go in, because that is the other side of the dichotomy. It's great to know that you go in at the last possible minute, and it's great to know that you don't have to speed up labor. However, there may be times where you do want to jumpstart it. You may want to have a little bit of medical intervention if you have, say, issues with your cervix. If your cervix has a lot of scar tissue, that can cause problems. If your waters have released and there's meconium, and there's a lot of meconium, that is a reason to go in and get checked out and have monitoring for your baby. If you recognize you're having way more pain than what is normal, that you're actually suffering through it, it's not, I had this really massive contraction and now I'm okay. But no, something's seriously wrong. Like your intuition is saying something is wrong, and you're not doing it from a place of fear, but from a place of deep intuition and knowing that you need to have that help. You deserve to be able to call that in without spiraling or without giving up your power. So this is the other side of recognizing your hard lines in the sand, and when a long labor would no longer be something that's like, you know what? I've been in labor for 3 days. I'd like to have a little bit of rest. And these contractions keep coming one on top of the other. It might be helpful for me at this point to go and get the epidural. I have clients who've done that. And it's okay to do that when you know the risks and benefits, and when you recognize and weigh against things and be like, okay, at this point, I will call in it. Rather than have the medical system dictate when things are done, you now have agency. You get to decide when you run Pitocin, if you run Pitocin at all, when you break your waters, if you break your waters at all, when you choose the epidural, if you choose the epidural at all, when you allow vaginal exams, if you allow them at all, you get to call the shots on that. And that's called becoming the birth consumer. I talk about this deeper inside other videos and master classes, so you can go and check out the Essential Tips series, particularly in birth advocacy. And then in addition to that, if you like more structure, I do have a program. It's called Your Empowered Birth Academy. You can go to empoweringmomsbirth.com/academy, and you can get that entire program. It comes with a graduation session. This is essentially, you finish the course and you go through all the material. You also have a 15-minute help I'm stuck session that you can also utilize at any time as you're going through the material. And then at the end of it, we just take everything that you've done, everything you've learned, we fine tune it to make sure that you can have that empowered birth. Because I want you to have an empowered birth, whether you work with me at the deepest level or not. Every birth can and should be a beautiful and empowering experience. And I'm really tired of seeing these stories of moms who are like, I was in labor 15 hours, I was in labor 20 hours, they ran Pitocin, they broke my waters, they did all the things to try to get it moving, it just didn't work, I didn't dilate, I had a C-section. So now I shouldn't attempt a VBAC because my labors just go too long. And they say that I have to have my baby within X number of hours, and I know that's not possible, so I'm having another C-section. I don't want a C-section, and I have to be okay with having another C-section. So give me all the tips on how to be okay with this, because I'm really not okay with this. Like, I see this in the mom groups all the time. And I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. You can get past your fear. You can recognize the medical system has its uses and call that in when you need it, and you become the birth consumer. It also is helpful to have your partner on board. If your partner is able to advocate for you and not be, well, an idiot like Christian, throwing that anxiety fit when Anna really needed support, not Christian thinking she was going to die, and thinking that baby was in trouble after only 15 hours and they ran Pitocin. If Christian had been trained up by me, that would not have happened. I would have taken one look at him and I'd been like, okay, I get you're worried. And at the same time, we need normal, powerful Christian CEO guy who's going to call shots on this doctor, not anxious little, I'm not even going to say it, but like I'm thinking it, because what the hell? But this is a problem. And I've talked about this inside my book, Your Empowered Birth, where the partner is the wild card. If your partner is in their little anxiety, and you just saw what it's like, if they're in their anxiety and they're listening to the doctor, or they have this idea that things should be moving along faster, they put that on you when you are in your most highly suggestible state. You may defer to them to help them feel okay. The Empowered Birth Method and Your Empowered Birth Academy and everything I teach helps you to make sure that your partner is your rock, not your anchor to the bottom of the ocean in terms of what you experience in your birth. Because honestly, they can be such a problem. As a doula, I have seen good partners, and I've seen partners that have let their anxiety get the best of them and push their partner right into having a C-section or an induction or going to the hospital when they didn't need to, talking them into the epidural when they didn't need it. And you just have to understand your partner has those fears too. So this is why I teach how to think, not what to think, because you get a lot of education and information that comes in through both dichotomies of natural birth versus medicalized birth. A lot of it is fear-based, which is why empowered birth method, get past your fear. Okay, so that is pretty much what I have on getting past your fear and not worrying about this long labor. Now we're going to quickly recap, okay? So how do you spot that trap? Well, it's simple. You see it out there in pop culture. You see it out there in modern society where people say the labor was long. I had to speed up the process. Things went awry. Sometimes things don't work. My body doesn't work. I had to have a C-section, or you yourself experience that. And you don't see all of the traps that you fell into that led to that. The medical system is used to filling beds, emptying beds, and they don't see physiological labor. So they are under the impression that you need to dilate X centimeters per hour, usually 1 centimeter per hour by active labor. And they only see pathology. So when you look at that, it's no wonder we fall into that trap. How do you get out of it? Go in at the last possible minute. Don't agree to cervix checks. Don't agree to interventions just because labor's long. Don't try to speed up the process. Move with the flow of your body. Understand physiological birth and be the birth consumer. Hire the right people to be in your space. Advocate for yourself. Get past your fear. Recognize that you can birth this baby with or without them, and that you can choose when to call in the medical interventions. And reclaiming childbirth as a rite of passage will help you do that. I also go deeper into my own methods within your Empowered Birth Academy and within other master classes in this series. So you can check out the rest of the Cesarean Traps playlist. You can also go to the natural birth traps, because that's going to help you recognize what traps to avoid so that you're planning your natural birth, and the essential tips series for planning natural birth, because that is going to give you the baseline education that you need. Finally, you need to make sure that your partner is not on the side of the medical system. Christian Grey, you're in my bad books. Not for anything you did within the relationship side of things, but just for the birth. For that C-section that Anna didn't need. And then, of course, he also tries to talk her out of a VBAC in that chapter. So you need your partner on board. That's probably the biggest tip I can give you, is you need your partner on board. You need to get past your fear, get your partner on board, and then you need to be able to recognize the way that the medical system works, the psychology of it, what they see, what they don't see, so that you can come to your birth from a place of power instead of a place of fear. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide. I also encourage you to get on the Empowered Birth newsletter. So I send this out once a week. I give you additional tips of empowered birth wisdom and empowered mom magic, which is the other side of empowering moms, because how you come to birth is how you come to all aspects of your life. So to go and check everything out, just go to empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide. That will give you your 3 paths. That will tell you more about the newsletter. That will tell you more about the Empowered Birth Toolkit and our signature programs, as well as tips that you want to be taking into consideration as a first-time mom, a seasoned mom, and a VBAC mom. And there's also some empowered birth stories of some of my previous clients who, against all odds, had completely physiological births without anybody touching them. So that's pretty much all I have for you today. If you found value in this video, then please like, share, subscribe to the channel, pay it forward, pass this on. A drop in the ocean creates ripples, many ripples create waves, and enough waves can change the tide. And here at Empowering Moms, I'm all about changing the tide. And next week, we're going to be going into trap number 10, which is restrictions of food and drink, because this is another side of how you can fall into the cesarean traps. I will be going into that one. And, there's just so much I can say about these cesarean traps and the natural birth traps as well. So if you want a little bit more information, then I do suggest that you check out the rest of the Essential Tips and Natural Birth Traps series and the cesarean traps. I also have deep dive trainings and challenges that you can check out. One of them I'd suggest is the Reset Your Mindset for Empowered Birth mini challenge. And the other one is Write Your Empowered Birth Plan. So check those out. You can also go to my website again, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide. That is where I update you and give you the most cutting edge programs and information about what we have for resources on the website. I have mini guides available, and I have a blog that I have started as well. So go and check that out. Consider also subscribing to the Empowered Birth newsletter, and I will see you soon. So have a happy empowered birth journey, whether you're birthing a baby, birthing a business or a creative project, or birthing a movement. Empowering Moms is here for you. Namaste.